Welcome to MentorTime, everybody. I'm excited to be here. This is a topic I love to talk about. Today, we're going to cover networking without networking. And it's really important to understand it because we all use the word networking and we don't all love it. So today we'll talk about what networking is. We'll talk about engaging. And then what should you do, as we always end mentor time with. I like to ask this question and answer it because most of us, when we hear the word networking, immediately for me, it's capital letters, all capitals, networking with thousands of people in the background and going to a meeting and having introduced myself and shake hands. And those of you who know me know I'm pretty extroverted and I can talk, but I can tell you I get tongue-tied when there's a networking event and we're supposed to be talking to each other and convincing each other why we want to connect on LinkedIn or why you want to be hired or just talk to me, please. Don't leave me hanging in the corner. I want to propose a framework to talk about networking just to remind us of the way in which it happens, especially now in the age of coming much more virtually for many of the events and meetings that we have. So I separated this into in-person networking and virtual networking and formal and informal opportunities. All of them have some part of serendipity. And I think many of us think of the serendipity only comes with in-person, informal, or sometimes formal meetings. But if we expand the framework to include the types of events, I gave examples for each of these things. You can see that there's ways that you can use even a virtual informal meeting to network, to be known and get known and noticed. Ways that you can offer help. We'll be talking about a lot of these things. Meetings, you have opportunities even in formal meetings to do your own informal networking. So I want you never to think about the word networking in capital letters again, and think about engaging, which is something every one of you that I know will be watching this and attending this today do, because I've worked with you all, met you all, know you all. And you use it using your professional presence. This isn't some networking formula about, remember the old days, what's your elevator pitch? What are you going to say to the CEO if you have 15 seconds in the elevator with him? That's never going to happen for me and a lot of other people. But people are going to see me online in meetings. They may see me in person. I hope to see some of you in person. The whole goal is to get known and noticed. That's the beginning of being able to network. So if we talk about you using your professional presence, the thing that we all do in networking is find a point of commonality. So when you're engaging in person, maybe you're at a conference, you raise your hand to ask a question. That puts you in a spotlight, a limelight, if you will. You go up after the meeting's over to thank the speaker. You go up to the podium, you ask the speaker a question, comment on something he or she shared that you felt was valuable, maybe request that you'd like to send them a connection request on LinkedIn. In all those ways, you're getting known and noticed. That person will remember you, even if she doesn't remember the name, she'll remember the message. I met you at the podium the other day. You wore a lovely purple pantsuit and you talked about the way in which AI is never going to affect my job, except it will. And she'll remember that and she'll say, oh, that's who that was. So you have a chance to get known and noticed, connect potentially. Engaging virtually, we actually have a lot more ways to do that. And I think people don't realize what we have available. So, of course, I'm here to tell you about. The most obvious for many of us is engaging on LinkedIn. But frankly, a lot of us don't love the idea of using LinkedIn or being on LinkedIn or posting on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to ask you to put in the chat box, How comfortable are you on LinkedIn? I know you all have LinkedIn accounts, profiles, and there's no value judgment if you tell me you're not at all comfortable about it, because I know some of you aren't. That doesn't negate what you're able to do with it, even when you are somewhat uncomfortable. All right, 2s and 3s, that's great. I love it. I want to help you feel even better about LinkedIn, and knowing that what you do, whether you're a 2 or a 3, you're using it. You have ways to feel what I call easy breezy. That's my message to you with the hammock. Ways to feel easy about engagement. One of the easiest ways to do this on LinkedIn, and even other social media, if you use Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, is commenting with value. Making a comment. In LinkedIn's new algorithm changes a few months ago, now you have to write one line, which is 12. I don't have enough fingers, 12 words. That's how I measured it. Is that you can look at someone's post, like Nick Martin, and then you can make a comment, as I did. I didn't just say, oh, congrats on the GDF was the Global Digital Development Forum. I told him that I recognized the setup, which was amazing, and he made a comment about that. And that I had attended some sessions and had already watched others, which I know he would recognize as, oh, she was very interested because she got it all watched within, I think he posted this 2 days after it ended. The second commenting is acknowledging people's results and achievements, yours and colleagues. In this case, someone that I've been connected to for several months told us that she ended 2022 with not only getting her PhD, but also having a baby. And she went on to other things, such as taking her, I think she was defending her thesis when she was 7 months pregnant. So I wrote congratulations, and I mentioned the doctorate and the child. She has a lot on her plate. But you can also do this if you want, posting your own exciting things. If I had an honor, if I had a new certification, I would try to write a brief post on it. And then another thing that you can do in this same area is write a post about what you're attending, like today's MentorTime, presenting, or delivering. So you don't have to originate everything. As you can see here, Lauren put up a note, I think it was literally the day before this the public health fair was happening, to remind people about this. So it was very easy for her to write a post. I suspect some of her text came from the original announcement that she had gotten, either by email or online. And so she originated a post about what she was going to attend. Here's a thought for at the end when I'm going to ask you what to do. Take a screenshot while I'm talking today and go ahead and post something tomorrow. That's what your challenge will be, I'm telling you right now. And I just want to end with what I found a very useful one-page announcement that Brenda Meller, who many of you know I follow and learn a lot from, about ideas for posts. The first one, she's the one who taught me, take a screenshot while you're listening to, watching a webinar, engaging in a webinar, and then post about it afterwards with one takeaway about what you learned. And I often do that. It forces me to do the self-reflection about what I had just attended that I don't always take time to do. Or your company news or your own news. We've talked about both of those. And there's a link there. You'll get it when I send out the slides. The second area is what I call unusual virtual engaging networking opportunities. And I say these are unusual because I don't think people realize the value and the opportunities that you have there. So there are 2 parts to this. This is the first, become familiar. Be consistent everywhere. Use the same photo, the same name, maybe your pronouns. On Zoom, if I turn my camera off, you'll see this exact same picture. This is on the Hop-In platform that I'm asked to use once a year for something I do for Tulane. And this time I thought, you know what? I'm going to fill it all in and make it complete so that it matches. And the little description matches a lot of what in my LinkedIn profile and elsewhere. Second part of becoming familiar, always introduce yourself. Even in this meeting, you can put in the chat box, where are you calling in from? Use your LinkedIn URL. It's a soft sell way to say, connect with me. I'm interested. We're both on something that we're clearly interested in the topic. And this is something that I think people don't appreciate as much until you start to see the results from it. When you provide expertise during a webinar, during a training session, during a meeting, even depending on the focus of the meeting, when you provide your expertise in the chat box, that begins to substantiate for people that you are an expert in your content area. In this case, I was in a meeting of job seekers, and they were asking for other ideas that the presenter had not mentioned. And I mentioned the value you can find from alumni. If you're a university graduate, your alumni group, alumni resources often include a portal for connecting alumni resources. So this is where you begin to be seen. And if you remember, I often talk about see and be seen. You can see things on LinkedIn. The chat box is where you can be seen much more frequently than writing a LinkedIn post sometimes. The second area of this is what I learned from Brenda about warm networking. And this is a brilliant strategy. In fact, LinkedIn now makes it even easier for us because as of a week or two ago, they now let you define the companies that you're interested in. But here's how you use warm networking to do more than click a link in what LinkedIn will now give you. You can connect to the company, your target company's LinkedIn pages. So that is clicking on the right, on the left-hand side of the screenshot, you'll see the follow button. I would click follow there for the World Food Program. And that will get their feed in. Anything that they might post will show up in your feed when you get on LinkedIn. And then you start to engage. First, look at who works there. Now you see in the red oval, it says, Sue, it doesn't say, Sue, you have 12 connections, but it says Sarah and 11 other connections, meaning people I'm directly attached to in LinkedIn. So 12 people work there out of the 15,000 that say they work there. Now that number of employees on a company page is anyone who's ever worked at the company, meaning they've shown that in their LinkedIn experience. So you have to be careful about that. You don't know whether they're active or not till you look at them. But you can see who your connections are. Once you identify connections that you want to be connected to, don't immediately send them a connection request, but use the people you're already connected to, such as these two people, Catherine and Rawan, who both provide me with very valuable content. But otherwise, I would follow people at the company and I would start commenting on their posts. So what's going to happen? You will become familiar to them. We just talked about it a few minutes ago with commenting. As you become familiar, then you have the opportunity to reach out to them. Are they doing the job you'd like to be in? Is the company expanding and they might be willing to talk to you and chat? So those are ways that you can have unusual opportunities for virtual networking that don't require a lot of networking with the capital letters. I don't know why I think it sounds like shouting when I see it in caps. We all know that. All right, so what are you going to do? This is going to be easy today. You all are building and using your professional presence. You're keeping it updated. You're going to get known and noticed. But just in summary, you're going to engage. You're not going to network. You're going to engage through points of commonality, through using LinkedIn for commenting on people's posts, for posting things yourself, for amplifying any other work that people are doing, such as reposting and sharing an announcement from one of your friends. And you're going to use these unusual virtual networking opportunities to become familiar and to use warm networking. All of these should feel pretty comfortable for you, even if you've never thought about them, because they don't require us to, in my mind, go out on a limb, put yourself out there, leave yourself hanging the way I have been in big, huge conference ballrooms where you're thousands of people are around and no one's talking to you, or maybe that was just me. So I am going to ask you to take action. And what I'd like you to do in the next 24 hours is one of these two things. Comment on a connections post, anybody's post, but tag me in it or DM me and tell me, Sue, look at this link. I did this. And if you want to, and you did grab a screenshot earlier, or you can wait for the recording and do it, make a post of your own on LinkedIn and just say, I attended MentorTime, and this was an important key takeaway for me, and tag me in it and I'll amplify it. So as always, I like to just show all the photos that I've been able to use in today's presentation. And I'm going to stop there and see if Ron has any comments.
Yeah, actually, when you talked early on about the idea of going up to talk to this speaker, it occurred to me that sometimes there's a queue. And so guess what? Now you have other people you can talk to, people who are also interested in talking to the speaker. And so there's another set of connections that you can make. And I have actually found myself doing that. Found myself never talking to the speaker because the lineup was too long, but met some interesting connections that way. That's just something to look out for as well.
That's great, Ron. That's brilliant. I hadn't thought about it because I haven't been to one of those meetings in a long time. Fabulous.
Well, it's been a while.
I know. Anybody else have any comments or questions on networking without networking? Does it feel approachable for you all?
Sue, I like that you were calling it engaging instead of the scary word of networking, because it's easy to engage or it feels easier to engage and taking those steps on LinkedIn. And I also really like you're having have to do these 2 steps in the next 24 hours. That's a good call to action. I'm going to do it.
Yay. Stephanie, I know you had something to say.
Do you feel like with so many people moving to not being in the office, do you feel like that's part of the reason you've shifted from the term networking to engaging?
I shifted from networking because everybody has for years told me they hate networking, even before we went virtual, and we only had in-person ways to do it unless you wrote a letter or something. I've noticed that myself. As I said, I have been left standing in a ballroom with no one to talk to, and I'm thinking I know half of the people in the room, and it's just the way people drift around and get doing business. And I think because I always was at meetings where it was everybody after the key speakers to try to get business from them. So going downtown DC where USAID was, World Bank was, it was always about, oh, who can I talk to and make sure my company gets a contract rather than just catching up with friends. But for the same reason that Peter just said, we've been raised in many ways in our careers to be told that there's a formula for networking and some people are good at it and some aren't. I think we all can do it, and virtual allows us so many, or provides us so many more opportunities to use our expertise. For me, the chat box real estate is a huge return on investment for small little comments that help move the conversation along. Does that help you?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I just want to echo what Peter had to say about the idea of changing the language around it to engaging. Let's face it, when you're in that queue trying to talk to the speaker, it is about engagement, and it's about something that goes beyond just that time waiting. And so when you're talking to other folks, it's engagement, it's creating a connection. And yeah, that's what networking is. But I like the language. It's friendlier. So that's the point. Yeah, thanks for that.
Great. Anyone else? Thank you for the additional friends who've joined.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Hepzibah, welcome.
Thank you. I think I missed the introductory part, but then I was just curious. You gave a task that we should do. I just wish you could touch on that again.
Sure, I'm happy to. Let me just go back to that slide so I can remind people. And you can even take a picture of this slide and post it. One of the things that I want to try to continue to do more of is making time for us to have the self-reflection time we should take, and I often don't, for webinars we go to, meetings we're at, whatever is useful for you. So I find when people challenge me, such as the speaking coach I've been working with for a year, I woke up this morning and she said, I want to know from all of you who did X, Y, and Z a few weeks ago, what's the one thing that's benefited you? And of course, that kind of challenge for me is, oh, I think I learned something. Let me figure it out. But I wouldn't have written it on my own. So what I want you to think about, and if you missed it, Hepzibah, not to worry, I will try to get the recording out by tomorrow morning, and you can do it when you have a chance and get whatever screen grab you want. But I'd like you to begin to start to think about how and in what ways you can use commenting on LinkedIn, if it's something that you have time and interest in doing, to make sure you're more and more visible. Each of you I know very well, and I know the kinds of work, Hepzibah, you do in quality. I just still love your tagline. I love it. And that's not, I've said this before, it's not due to Ron and me working with you in the course. It was, you came with a lot of your LinkedIn profile well laid out. But I'd like you to comment on a connections post and make it substantive, not just congratulations, someone who got a degree, or sorry, about whatever you're going through, but really say something that reinforces someone's new job. Congratulations on that new job. I know that your new role will allow you to bring so much experience to whatever company you're going to help them on environmental issues. A friend of mine posted something today about his job change. So that way you can start to make small efforts that get you engaging and networking. Many of you know that I want very much to be helpful to make sure everybody in the globe has equal opportunities and ways to participate in LinkedIn and other virtual settings. And so I'd also like you to think about even writing your own post. It doesn't have to be very long. That's why I say put a picture there. You put a picture there, it immediately fills out the post. But what's one key takeaway that you heard from me or from people like Peter's contribution, Ron's contribution, Stephanie's question today? Anything that was a takeaway for you, such as, I really like Ron, when Ron said, don't forget, Sue, remember the old days, there used to be lines and you have all those other people you can connect with. I didn't even think about that. So does that help you, Hepzibah, think about what you could do and I say 24 hours just so that you feel a little pressure maybe to get it done, not give you 48 hours.
Yes, it's clear now. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else with comments? Thank you all. I'm going to open this for the chat box. Is there any question outside of today's topic that anybody wants to discuss? Any comments? All right.
So I have a question.
Sure, Ella.
Sorry, I should have played, just finished the meeting.
It's
But
okay.
my question is regarding, you've been doing mentoring for a long time for students and non-students. At my work currently, I'm considered mid-career senior, and I have a lot of mentees or individuals who are interested to be mentees who are just starting their work. How do you deassociate what the mentees are going through in terms of issues in their job, but they come and talk to you about like, how can we find solutions? And you get to know about a lot of the things that are happening to them that, for example, are unfair, and how you do your own work. I'm very sensitive to it, and I find it very difficult sometimes to like just deassociate myself from what they're going through. Specific example, one of the individuals worked with us here in Seattle. They live in Seattle, they're being paid $40,000, which is below the even survival for Seattle. And I found it very difficult to like have conversations with my boss without having that in the back of my head. You can do better. You can treat this person better. And of course, there's a lot of things that goes with it. But how do you de-associate?
That's a very thorny issue, and it's one that I'm sure, knowing you and others on the call today, one that we all care about tremendously. I'm going to give you a little bit of a soliloquy, a monologue, and then give you some ideas. It is hard when we want to help people, and yet we have to draw the lines at work. And that's really difficult and something I still find challenging, even though I'm not in a company setting. The opportunity you have, which is a challenge in and of itself, is because, let me back up. I know this isn't the only thing that weighs on you and others. We all know I lived as an expat and worked as an expat for 20 years. I know my pay was way up above what the nationals in the country were paid, even third country nationals, what they used to call third country nationals from other countries. There was not equity and there was not fairness. I'm living very close to our capital city, Washington, D.C., where, just like you were saying, living wages are not being paid to most people. So it's always present. And I just want to acknowledge that is something you are dealing with more than just, I know, a la this one example. You have to balance at work your opportunities to do your work and work with your boss to meet the goals of what your boss is leading in the work that he or she or they do in the company you're in, the group you're in. So you can't take on every battle and you can't take on every structural issue because it is structural. The way in which, so I'm going to talk about managing up, and then maybe you did or didn't have a question about the employee. The way you can talk to your boss would be, what I would do is, and I recommend this to many of you if we've worked closely together, that you set up a quarterly meeting with your boss about, not about your work, but about your professional development track in your work, meaning making sure you're getting the support from him or her about what courses you need to take or what way that you can help continue to advance. And that sometimes that blends with the work that you meet with your boss on every week or every month, however often you meet. So you manage up by bringing up with him, oh, we're coming up, for example, we're coming up to performance reviews. I know that there are many job cadres in our group or in this company that are paid below the wages that are should be parity with, for example, down the street, whatever is down the street. In your case, I'm thinking Microsoft. There's a big NGO there called PATH that's well funded by down the street Gates Foundation. So you have the well paid and the not well paid. Your challenge with any company is that they work with HR very closely to maintain grade levels and pay levels. And from my experience of 2 decades of working in big companies, I know those are very hard to change. On the employee side, if you're talking about people you work with, if you supervise them and or work with them technically, you should be able to provide information that will be valuable for their supervisor to know what a valued team member they are, what unusual work they do for you or whatever, and perhaps be able to advocate for better pay for them. Other than that, I will ask Ron if he has comments. I can't think of anything else, but just trying to help you understand that it's hard to, I understand that it's very hard to deassociate yourself. I actually like that, pulling it apart, but there are opportunities you could take with your boss. So Ron, do you have any comments to add?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that you can advocate for your colleagues. But I agree with you. You wouldn't want to do that at the sort of the periodic review meeting. You would want to have a different session, I think. It'd be a catch-up meeting or something, and then say, oh, by the way. And it would be awkward for if there's pay inequity that you're trying to deal with. I've never been in that situation specifically, other than myself, where I managed to negotiate a higher pay because I was accepted to work at another job. And it was an accident. I didn't actually plan on working for the new company, but they offered to hire me. And so in going through that process, I found myself in a really awkward situation where I was looking at much more money, and I wasn't really looking to leave the company. You get into these kind of curious, awkward situations. And so what do you do with it? So in my case, I just spoke to my boss, told him what happened. And that was easy, but that was, of course, about me, not about somebody else. The kinds of things that I've helped others with is more to do with the workplace harassment and things like that. It's not the same, but helping somebody through a situation where they believe they're being harassed and what to do, and providing guidance there. Now, I found myself doing that, and there I actually don't want to distance myself. Because for me, it's an important issue. And so I guess it depends. I don't know whether that's helpful, but these are the thoughts that have been going through my head while I've been listening to this serious question.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for mentioning that example. We actually did have to deal with a sexual harassment issue in one of our studies. And just thank you for mentioning it, because I was worried about that. And I actually spoke up in several meetings about like actual plans and procedures that needs to be in to protect a lot of our team and staff. Pay is sensitive, as Sue mentioned. It has to do more with HR majority of the time. But yeah, just sharing your experience, just that it is difficult, but it just makes it easier to think about it. Focus about your goals, set up a new meeting to advocate for these individuals. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Other questions or comments before we close? All right, then. We will meet again in 2 weeks. And I will ask Ron to close the meeting, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Sue, again, for a very interesting topic. You put a lot of work into getting us to do some work. And so I guess I'm going to have to do some work too. And so thanks very much. And I'm sorry that some were a little late joining the meeting, but the recording will be available. So you'll be able to go back and review some of the things that happened earlier in the meeting. So thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Good to see you all. Take care. Thanks, Arlene, for joining.